Galactic Cycle 78.4. The Meeting of the Dominions. The Clari Dominion had conquered 69 planets. The Deruvian regime had crushed entire star systems. The Vlax Imperium's war fleets had never been stopped. And yet, today the greatest warlords in the galaxy gathered with one single question. Why has no one conquered Earth? It was small. It was isolated. It had no planetary defenses, no orbital fleets, no intergalactic allies. On every map of the galactic war front, Earth sat alone. Vulnerable. Defenseless. The perfect target. And yet, no one touched it. Not even the most ruthless, most powerful warlords in the universe. The Clari Chancellor leaned forward, mandibles clicking in frustration. This is unacceptable. We must know why this primitive world remains untouched. The Vlax Imperator's four crimson eyes narrowed. My scouts report nothing unusual. No defense grids, no planetary shields. Their military is laughable compared to ours. If we wished, we could burn Earth to ashes before their leaders finished a single sentence. The Deruvian warlord grunted. Then why does no one do it? A tense silence filled the chamber. Finally, a voice cut through the air. Because, said High Inquisitor Velzon, every species that has tried, is gone. The room froze. A cold chill ran through the warlords. Velzon's gaze was like a blade against their throats. There were attempts. You do not hear of them because they are erased. He leaned forward, voice soft but deadly. Let me tell you a story. Galactic Cycle 34.7. The First Invasion. 120 cycles ago, the Ilvic swarm had attacked Earth. They were a species of conquerors, their fleets spreading across the stars like wildfire. Their organic dreadnoughts had devoured moons for sustenance. Their hive legions had drowned entire planets in living tides of destruction. Earth should have fallen in hours. Instead, within a single day, the entire Ilvic species vanished. Not defeated. Not beaten back. Vanished. No distress calls. No wreckage. No survivors. Gone. It was as if they had never existed. The galactic community had assumed it was a fluke. A disaster, perhaps. A failed campaign. Then came the second invasion. Galactic Cycle 42.9. The Second Mistake. The Zarkrath warlords were the most brutal empire of their time. Their ships were unstoppable. Their armies were merciless. They did not conquer. They eradicated. And so, they descended upon Earth with the full force of their empire. In a single sweep, their orbital cannons turned cities to glass. Their ground troops marched into the ruins, expecting only helpless survivors to slaughter. And then, silence. Within 37 minutes, all Zarkrath forces stopped transmitting. The invasion fleet, once numbering in the millions, was simply gone. Not a single ship returned. Not a single soldier was found. The Zarkrath ceased to exist. Their homeworld? Vanished. Every colony? Erased. Every record of their species? Wiped from history. It was as if the universe had removed them entirely. And yet, Earth remained. Galactic Cycle 63.2. The Final Warning. By now, the galactic empires knew the pattern. Every species that attacked Earth disappeared. Still, the Krell Imperium, foolish, arrogant, desperate for dominance, sent an entire armada. Not just warships. Extermination fleets. Their goal was simple, to wipe Earth from existence. They never arrived. The armada's path vanished from the star charts. No distress signals. No wreckage. It was as if their ships had never existed. The Krell Imperium crumbled overnight. Not conquered. Not defeated. They simply ceased. And yet, Earth remained. Untouched. Present day, the warlords' fear. The warlords of the Dominion sat in horrified silence. Velzon let their terror sink in. Finally, the Vlax Imperator whispered, "What is Earth?" Velzon's mandibles clicked. A trap. A long pause. A trap. For who? The High Inquisitor slowly stood. He turned away from the table, stepping toward the great galactic map. Beyond the Clari Dominion. Beyond the Deruvian regime. Beyond all known space. He pointed to the outer darkness. To the void beyond the edge of the universe. Not for us, he said softly. For something else. A silence hung in the air. Then, a warning klaxon shrieked. The warlords tensed. A transmission cut through the noise. And a single human voice spoke. You are asking the wrong questions. The galactic warlord stared in horror. Because the transmission had no source. It had come from every direction at once. From nowhere. And yet, they felt the eyes watching them. Velzon's mandibles clicked. His voice was a whisper. They are listening. The warlord's chamber, seconds after the transmission. A shiver crawled through the warlords. They had conquered galaxies. They had burned civilizations to nothing. They had never been afraid. Until now. Because the human voice had come from everywhere. No source. No direction. No detectable energy signature. Just words. You are asking the wrong questions. And yet they all heard it differently. The Clari Chancellor had heard it in his own language, whispered like a lover in the dark. The Vlax Imperator had heard it in the dying gasps of his father, spoken in his final breaths. The Deruvian warlord had heard it in the screams of his victims, as if the dead had spoken. A voice that knew them. A voice that was not a warning but a promise. Velzon, High Inquisitor of the Dominion, slowly exhaled. His claws curled against the table, the only sound in the vast chamber. "We leave," he said, voice tight with restraint. The Clari Chancellor's mandibles clicked in protest. "Leave? We have not even begun." Velzon turned, eyes like cold fire. "You want to end up like the Krell?" The room fell silent. Because they all knew what had happened to the Krell. They had vanished. Every record of them gone. And the universe had moved on. The Vlax Imperator finally spoke, voice low. "We need to understand. If Earth is a trap, then who is it for?" Velzon slowly turned back to the great galactic map. The void beyond all known space. The place where nothing should exist. Yet, something did. Earth orbit, hidden observers. High above Earth, beyond the sight of human telescopes, beyond the reach of their primitive radars, something watched. Not warships. Not satellites. Something older. Something deeper. They did not move. They did not speak. They only waited. Their forms were not metal. They were not flesh. They were something else. Something that did not belong in this universe. And they had been waiting a long time. For what? For someone to come too close. For someone to open the door. For someone to be foolish enough. To ask the wrong questions. Deep space, the first ripples. Far beyond the warlord's chamber, beyond even the empires of the galaxy, something stirred. A point in space folded inward. Like the fabric of the universe was being peeled back. It was small at first. A tremor. A whisper. But it was spreading. And as it did, something was looking back. Something hungry. The warlord's chamber. The final decision. Velzon turned from the map, his expression grim. "We do not go near Earth." The Clari Chancellor's mandibles twitched. "Then what do we do?" Velzon slowly sat back down. And for the first time in his long and merciless rule, he felt a cold fear settle into his bones. He met the gazes of the warlords around him. And in that moment he knew. They were not the hunters. They were the prey. Earth was not defenseless. It did not need fleets. It did not need armies. It had something worse. Something watching. Something waiting. Something that had erased every invader as if they had never existed. And now, it knew they were watching too. Velzon's voice was quiet. "We pray it does not look back." But it was already too late. Deep space, the wound in reality. Something shifted. Not like a ship entering real space. Not like an energy surge or a hyperspace signature. It was something else. A wrongness. A place where the laws of physics had always been thin, stretched taut like aging skin over something unspeakable. And now it was tearing open. The warlords had not caused this. Neither had the humans. No one had. It had been waiting. Dormant. Slumbering. Timeless. But the moment the warlords turned their eyes upon Earth, it had stirred. It had begun to wake. And now the universe was looking back. A ship, one of the Dominion's most advanced reconnaissance vessels, had been stationed at the edge of the anomaly. 36 seconds ago it sent out a distress signal. 36 seconds ago it had been there. Now it was gone. Not destroyed. Not broken. Removed. As if it had never been. The warlord's chamber, the whispering void. Velzon sat rigid in his seat. The distress signal was still playing in the chamber, looping over and over. It wasn't static. It wasn't garbled words. It was breathing. Not the breath of the crew. Not even the breath of something alive. Something was breathing from the other side. The Clari Chancellor's mandibles were locked so tightly that his jaws had begun to bleed. His voice was barely a whisper. This is why no one attacks Earth. The Vlax Imperator could not move. The warlords, all ruthless conquerors, destroyers of civilizations, could only listen as the breathing continued. Until something spoke. Not in words. Not in any language. It spoke in understanding. A voice that was not a voice. A message that was not spoken. It simply became known. You looked too closely. Velzon's body went cold. He suddenly understood. They had not merely seen Earth. They had been seen. And now it was coming. Beyond the universe, the nameless ones stir. The place where the Krell had vanished was not a battlefield. It was a graveyard. A place where things older than time had long since fed. And now, they were hungry again. Something pressed against the fabric of existence. Not a fleet. Not a weapon. Something more. And it was waking up. The Galactic Council, the last warning. A new transmission shattered across every communication array in the galaxy. Not from Velzon. Not from the warlords. From Earth. The message was simple. It is too late. And then, from the depths of space, the stars began to go out. The edge of known space, the stars die first. They had been burning for billions of years. Titanic, ancient, eternal. Yet now, one by one, they went out. Not extinguished. Not collapsed into black holes. Not even consumed. Simply gone. Across the galactic core, the brightest stars vanished like dying embers. Entire solar systems ceased to exist. No explosions. No warnings. No time. The warlords watched from their command thrones, their fleets still poised at the edge of Earth's domain. None of them spoke, because they felt it. A pressure. A presence. Something vast, ancient, beyond comprehension. And now it had noticed them. The Galactic Council, the final broadcast. This is High Speaker Lauren of the Galactic Council. The message blared across every frequency in the known universe. His voice was not calm. Not diplomatic. It was shaking. This is a planetary-wide emergency. Do not approach Sol. Do not scan Earth. Do not interact. We have seen the signs. We have heard the warnings. He paused, as if listening for something. Then he whispered, "We were fools to ever look." And then the signal cut to static. The warlords, a choice they cannot make. Velzon could barely move. His claws trembled over his throne's controls. He had led countless invasions. Had witnessed entire species burned away. But now, for the first time in his existence, he was terrified. The darkness was watching them. And he knew with absolute certainty that if they did not leave, they would never leave at all. Earth, where the gods sleep. The storm clouds over Earth churned with unnatural motion. Lightning split the sky not in flashes, but in words. Messages carved across reality, written in languages older than the stars. The surface of the planet shimmered, twisted, warped. And then, from somewhere beyond the reach of time, something opened its eyes. The warlords felt it. The council felt it. Every species in the galaxy felt it. A presence so old that even the concept of time could not measure it. A being so vast that space itself bent to accommodate its form. And then, for the first time since the dawn of civilization, it spoke. Leave. The exodus. The warlords did not hesitate. Hundreds of fleets turned. Battleships, dreadnoughts, invasion carriers, all fleeing. Races who had ruled for millennia, species who had conquered and slaughtered without mercy. Now they ran. They ran without looking back. And Earth? Earth simply watched. The universe remembers. No one attacked Earth again. Not because of treaties. Not because of diplomacy. But because the warlords had looked too closely. And now they knew. Earth was not defenseless. It had never needed to be. Because something else was already protecting it. Something that should never be awakened. Something that now was watching all of them. Transmission ended. Do you want to know what waits beneath Earth's surface? Do you dare to look deeper? Subscribe now, before something looks back.